The meeting room on Nexus Prime Station buzzed with alien voices. 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their translators working hard to make sense of all the different languages. The air smelled of metal and strange chemicals from the alien breathing systems. Commander Lee Minho sat quietly in his chair, watching everything. His dark eyes moved from speaker to speaker, taking in every word, every gesture. He wore the simple gray uniform of the Human Defense Force. Nothing fancy or decorated like the other commanders around the table. Admiral Kekstar slammed his scaled fist on the table. The reptilian alien was huge, almost 3 meters tall, with green skin that looked like armor plates. His yellow eyes glowed with anger as he spoke. "The Ravager swarms grow stronger every day," Kekstar hissed through his sharp teeth. "They destroyed the Helios system last month. Ate everything. Planets, moons, even the stars' energy. We must strike them hard and fast before they reach our core worlds." General Tishra clicked her mandibles in agreement. The insect-like alien had 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the room's lights like jewels. Her voice sounded like buzzing when she spoke. "My carrier fleets can deploy 10,000 fighter ships," she said. "We overwhelm them with numbers. Crush them like the bugs they are." Other alien commanders nodded and added their own ideas. All of them talked about big fleets, massive weapons, and direct attacks. They pointed at the holographic display showing star maps and fleet positions. Red dots marked where the Ravagers had been seen. The pattern looked random, like they were just destroying everything they found. Minho listened to everything but said nothing. He had a small tablet in front of him and occasionally made notes. His fingers moved quietly across the screen, writing things that only he could see. Captain Park Soman sat next to him. She was younger than Minho, maybe 30 years. Old, with short black hair and intelligent brown eyes. She handled communications between the human ships and other species. Soman noticed that Minho was not just taking notes about what people said. He was writing down other things too. Things about how the aliens moved, how they thought, how they planned their attacks. "What about defensive positions?" Minho asked. Quietly, when there was a pause in the conversation, Admiral Kekstar turned his big head toward the human. His yellow eyes looked annoyed, like Minho was wasting his time. "Defensive positions are for cowards," Kekstar said with a snort. "Humans are new to space war. You do not understand how real warriors fight." Some of the other aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. General Tishra's mandibles clicked faster. "Perhaps the humans should watch and learn," she said. "Your species has only been in space for a few decades. We have been fighting wars among the stars for thousands of years." Minho nodded politely but did not look angry or hurt. He just made another note on his tablet. "Of course," he said in his calm voice. "We have much to learn." The meeting continued for 3 more hours. The alien commanders made their battle plans. They would gather their biggest ships in the Kepler defense line, a group of star systems that protected the inner worlds. When the Ravagers came, they would meet them with overwhelming firepower. Thousands of ships, millions of weapons, enough destruction to turn space itself into fire. Minho asked a few more quiet questions. What about supply lines? How would they coordinate between different species with different communication systems? What if the Ravagers did not attack the way they expected? Each time, the aliens dismissed his concerns. They had fought many wars and won. Humans were too new, too cautious, too weak to understand real warfare. When the meeting ended, the alien commanders left quickly. They had fleets to organize and weapons to prepare. Minho and Soman stayed behind, looking at the holographic display that still showed the star maps. "They do not listen to you," Soman said quietly. "Good," Minho replied, which surprised her. He stood up and walked closer to the display. His finger traced lines through space, connecting the red dots where Ravagers had been spotted. To most people, the attacks looked random, but Minho saw something else. "Look at this pattern," he said, pointing to the dots. They hit the Vega system first, rich in metals and energy. Then Centauri Prime, which had a big population. After that, the Helios system with its advanced technology. Soman looked closer. I do not see anything special. Each attack was different, Minho explained. At Vega they sent small fast ships to steal resources quickly. At Centauri Prime, they used different tactics, surrounding the planet and studying the people before attacking. At Helios, they brought ships designed to drain energy from the star itself. So they adapt, Soman said. They change their methods based on what they find. More than that, Minho said, his voice getting more serious. They learn. Each attack teaches them something new about how we fight, how we think, how we defend ourselves. They are not just destroying everything they find, they are preparing. Soman felt a chill run down her back. Preparing for what? Minho looked at the display showing the planned positions of the council fleets. All those big ships lined up in neat rows, ready to blast anything that came near. For us, he said simply. He pulled up another screen on his tablet and showed it to Soman. It was full of notes he had made during the meeting. Not just about battle plans, but about the aliens themselves. How Admiral Kekstar always chose direct attacks. How General Tishra liked to use swarm tactics with her fighters. How each species had patterns in the way they fought, patterns they had used for thousands of years. If I can see these patterns in a few hours, Minho said. Imagine what the Ravagers have learned by watching us fight for months. The station's lights dimmed slightly as the day cycle changed. Most of the aliens would be resting now, confident in their plans and their strength. But Minho was not done working. What do we do? Soman asked. Minho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen a puzzle and figured out how to solve it. We do what humans do. Best, he said. We watch, we learn. We adapt, and when the time comes, we show them that being quiet does not mean being weak. He started walking toward the door, then stopped and looked back at the holographic display one more time. The red dots showing Ravager attacks seemed to pulse in the dim light, like a heartbeat getting faster. Send a message to all human ships, Minho told Soman. Tell them to prepare for special operations, silent running. No communication with the main fleet unless absolutely necessary. What kind of special operations? Soman asked. Minho's smile got a little wider. The kind that work best when nobody expects them? As they left the meeting room, the holographic display continued showing the battle plans the aliens had made. Neat lines of ships, clear firing zones, everything organized and predictable. It looked strong and powerful, but in the dark corners of the display where the light barely reached, there were spaces between the lines, small gaps where tiny ships might hide. Places where quiet observers could watch and wait, places where humans could do what they did best. 3 weeks after the meeting on Nexus Prime, the galaxy held its breath. Long-range sensors across dozens of systems all showed the same terrifying sight. The Ravager swarms were moving toward the Kepler defense line like a dark cloud spreading. Across space, the research ship Sol's Promise drifted quietly near the edge of the Kepler system. It looked small and harmless compared to the massive alien warships that filled the space around them. Dr. Choi Yunji worked at her station. Surrounded by screens showing data about the approaching enemy, she was a thin woman in her 30s with tired eyes from staying awake too long. Her fingers moved quickly across her controls, analyzing every piece of information the sensors could gather about the Ravagers. Commander Minho, she called across the ship's bridge. You need to see this. Minho walked over to her station. Even here on his own ship, he moved quietly like he was trying not to disturb anyone. Captain Park Soman followed him, along with Colonel Kim Dae-yun, a tall man with scars on his hands from years of combat. What did you find? Minho asked. Dr. Choi pointed to her main screen. It showed strange readings from the approaching Ravager fleet. These are not just mindless monsters, she said. Look at their formation patterns. Look at how they move. The screen displayed the Ravager ships as small dots of light moving through space. But they were not rushing forward in a wild charge like everyone expected. Instead, they moved in careful groups, each group taking a different path toward the defense line. They are scouting, Colonel Kim said, understanding immediately, checking different routes, looking for weaknesses. More than that, Dr. Choi said. She brought up another screen showing biological readings from the Ravager ships. These creatures share some kind of group mind. When one learns something, they all learn it. Every battle they have fought, every tactic they have seen, it all gets shared among the entire swarm. Soman felt sick. So they remember every way we have ever fought. Them, every species that ever tried to stop them, Dr. Choi confirmed. Thousands of years of battle experience, all stored in their collective memory. They know how the Vorthek fight, how the Zephyrians attack, how every council race thinks and plans. Through the viewport they could see the council fleets in the distance, massive ships arranged in perfect battle lines, just like Admiral Kekstar had planned. Dreadnoughts with guns bigger than buildings. Carriers launching fighter squadrons. Everything looked powerful and ready for war. Have you tried telling the alien commanders about this? Colonel Kim asked. Minho shook his head. They would not. Listen, Admiral Kekstar thinks the Ravagers are just animals. General Taisha believes overwhelming numbers always win. They see what they want to see. A communication signal came through from the alien flagship. Admiral Kekstar's face appeared on the screen, his yellow eyes bright with excitement for the coming battle. Human vessels, he said in his hissing voice. You will take position in the rear sectors. Escort duty for civilian ships. Leave the real fighting to experienced warriors. Understood, Minho replied calmly. We will move to the assigned positions. The communication ended. Colonel Kim looked angry, but Minho seemed almost pleased. Escort duty, Kim said with disgust. They still think we are too weak to fight. Perfect, Minho said. Let them think that. Over the next 2 days, human ships spread out across the rear areas of the defense line. To anyone watching, it looked like they were following orders, moving away from the main battle zones to protect fleeing civilians. The alien commanders paid no attention to where the humans went, but Dr. Choi was watching something else. Her sensors tracked the small probe ships that the Ravagers sent ahead of their main fleet. These tiny vessels darted around the Council defenses like insects, never staying in one place long enough to be shot. Look at this, she said, showing Minho her data. The probes are not just looking at our ship positions. They are testing response times. When a probe appears, how long does it take for our ships to notice? How long to target it? How long to fire? They are learning our reflexes, Salman realized. Everything about us, Dr. Choi agreed. Communication delays between different species, coordination problems, which ships are fast, which are slow, which weapons work best at different ranges. The probes also did something else that worried Dr. Choi. They would appear near a group of ships, act threatening, then run away when the ships moved to attack. But they always ran in a specific direction, leading the pursuing ships away from their formations. They are teaching themselves how to make us move where they want us to go, she explained to Minho. Like herding animals? On the third day, the main Ravager fleet arrived at the edge of the Kepler system. The aliens were massive, beyond imagination. Some ships looked like they had grown instead of being built, with organic curves and surfaces that pulsed like living tissue. Others were clearly made from the remains of destroyed worlds, chunks of planets welded together into weapons of war. Admiral Kekstar immediately ordered all ships to battle positions. The Council fleet formed their planned battle lines, guns charged and ready. General Taisha launched her fighter squadrons, filling space with thousands of small craft, but the Ravagers did not attack right away. Instead, they sent out more probes, hundreds of them swarming around the Council defenses like angry bees. The alien commanders ordered their ships to shoot at the probes, to drive them away. Fools, Minho said quietly as he watched the battle. Displays, they are showing the enemy exactly how they fight. Every time a Council ship fired, the Ravager probes learned something new. How fast the weapons moved, how much damage they could do, how long it took to reload. The probes that got destroyed sent their information to the main fleet before they died. Dr. Choi's readings showed the Ravager ships changing, adapting, preparing. Their formation shifted as they learned where the strongest defenses were. New weapons appeared on their hulls, designed to counter specific council tactics. How long do we have? Colonel Kim asked. Dr. Choi looked at her screens showing the Ravager preparations. 6 hours, maybe 8. Then they will know everything they need to know. And then? Soman asked. Minho was looking at a different screen, one showing the positions of human ships scattered across the rear areas. They looked small and unimportant compared to the alien battle fleets, but they were exactly where Minho wanted them to be. Then we find out if being underestimated is really an advantage, he said. He opened a communication channel to all human vessels, using a frequency the aliens rarely monitored. His voice was calm and steady when he spoke. All units, this is Commander Minho. Prepare for Phase 1 operations. Silent running protocols in effect immediately. No communication with alien forces unless directly ordered. Stay hidden, stay quiet, and wait for my signal. Across the system, human ships began disappearing from sensors. They did not leave, but they became much harder to find. Some hid in asteroid fields. Others used the sensor shadows of larger alien ships. A few simply turned off everything except life support and drifted like dead metal in space. What if you are wrong? Soman asked quietly. What if the aliens can win with their big fleets and heavy weapons? Minho looked at the display showing Ravager probe movements. The pattern was almost complete. Soon, the enemy would know everything about how the Council fought. They would know exactly how to tear apart those perfect battle lines. I hope I am wrong, Minho said, but I do not think I am. In the distance, the alien fleets waited in their formations, confident and ready. They had no idea that their enemy was not preparing to fight them. The Ravagers were preparing to dissect them, to take apart their tactics piece by piece until nothing was left but wreckage and regret. The storm was coming, and it would be worse than anyone imagined. The attack began at exactly 0800 hours, ship time. But it was nothing like what the alien commanders expected. The Ravagers did not charge forward in a wild rush. They did not try to overwhelm the Council defenses with raw numbers. Instead, they moved like surgeons cutting apart a patient. Each strike planned and precise. Admiral Kekstar watched from his flagship as the enemy fleet approached his battle line. He was confident, standing tall on his command deck with his scales gleaming under the bridge lights. Around him, his officers prepared the massive guns that could destroy a moon with a single shot. All ships, prepare to fire, Kekstar ordered. Show these creatures the power of a real war fleet. But the Ravager ships did something strange. As they got closer, they began to split apart. What had looked like single large vessels suddenly became dozens of smaller ones, moving in patterns that made no sense to the alien commanders. Sir, one of Kekstar's officers called out, they are not following any formation we recognize. It does not matter, Kekstar hissed. Fire everything. The Council fleet opened fire with weapons that could burn through planets. Beams of energy bright enough to blind anyone who looked directly at them filled space between the two fleets. Missiles that carried the explosive power of small stars raced toward the Ravager ships. It should have been a massacre. The alien weapons were powerful beyond imagination, built by species that had been making war for thousands of years. But somehow, most of the shots missed their targets. The Ravager ships moved like water flowing around rocks. They seemed to know exactly where each weapon would fire before it fired. They slipped between energy beams that should have destroyed them. They changed direction just as missiles reached where they had been a moment before. Impossible, Kekstar growled. How do they know our targeting patterns? On the Soul's Promise, Dr. Choi watched her sensors and felt sick. They learned everything from the probes, she told Minho. Every weapon signature, every targeting system, every firing pattern, they know exactly how each Council ship fights. The Ravager counterattack was devastating in its precision. They did not waste shots on heavily armored targets. Instead, they hit communication arrays, sensor clusters, and weapon control systems. Council ships found themselves blind and deaf. unable to coordinate with their allies. General Teshra's carrier group was hit next. The insect-like commander had launched her fighter squadrons according to her species' traditional tactics, the same tactics her people had used for centuries. The Ravagers were ready for them. Creatures that looked like flying metal spiders came out of the Ravager ships. They moved faster than any fighter the galaxy had ever seen, and they seemed to know exactly where Teshra's pilots would go before the pilots knew it themselves. "My fighters are being slaughtered," Teshra reported over the communication channels, her voice full of panic. "They anticipate every move, every maneuver. How is this possible?" Admiral Kekstar tried to rally his battle line, but the Ravagers had learned something else from their probes. They knew which ships were the command vessels, which ones coordinated the fleets. Those ships became priority targets. Kekstar's own flagship shuddered as Ravager bioweapons ate through its armor, like acid through paper. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge as systems failed one by one. "All ships fall back to secondary positions," Kekstar ordered, but half his fleet could no longer receive communications. The Ravagers had targeted their communication systems first, leaving them isolated and confused. In the first hour of battle, the Council lost 30% of their fleet. In the second hour, they lost another 20%. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours before were now burning wrecks drifting through space, but something else was happening in the battle zone, something the alien commanders were too busy to notice. Small explosions appeared throughout. The Ravager fleet, not from Council weapons, but from somewhere else entirely. Captain Yoon Ji-won commanded the human destroyer Bison's Edge, hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. She watched the main battle through passive sensors, waiting for the right moment. When a group of Ravager ships broke away from the main fleet to pursue fleeing Council vessels, she struck. The Bison's Edge emerged from hiding like a shark attacking from below. Its weapons were much smaller than the guns on alien ships, but they hit their target with perfect accuracy. The Ravager ship exploded, its biohull unable to handle the precise damage to its nerve centers before the other Ravagers could respond. Ji-won's ship was gone again, vanishing into another hiding spot among the asteroids. "Target destroyed," she reported on the human communication channel. Returning to concealment. All across the battle zone, similar attacks were happening. Human ships appeared from hiding places, struck with surgical precision, then disappeared again. They did not try to fight the Ravagers in open battle. Instead, they picked off isolated targets, damaged supply lines, and created confusion in the enemy formations. Lieutenant Nam Hyok flew his fighter through a field of wreckage from destroyed Council ships. His small craft was almost invisible among all the floating debris. When a Ravager scout ship came to investigate the wreckage, Hyok was waiting. His fighter's weapons were tiny compared to capital ship guns, but he did not need to destroy the enemy ship completely. Dr. Troy had identified weak points in Ravager bioships, places where a small amount of damage could cause much larger problems. Hyok's shots hit the scout ship's nerve clusters, the biological systems that connected it to the Ravager group mind. The ship did not explode, but it began flying in circles, confused and unable to communicate with its fleet. "Another neural disruption confirmed," Hyok reported. "Proceeding to next target." Admiral Kekstar finally noticed what was happening. When his sensors showed Ravager ships destroying each other, some enemy vessels had become confused and were attacking their own allies. Others were reporting false information about Council ship positions. "What is causing this?" he demanded from his damaged bridge. One of his officers checked the tactical displays. "Sir, there are small, unidentified ships throughout the battle zone. They appear to be targeting Ravager communication systems." "Whose ships?" Kekstar asked. The officer hesitated. "Unknown, sir. They are too small to identify clearly." But on the Soul's promise, Minho knew exactly whose ships they were. His plan was working better than he had hoped. The Ravagers' greatest strength, their shared intelligence, was becoming their weakness. "Phase 2 is authorized," he broadcast to all human units. "Begin neural disruption protocol." Dr. Choi had spent weeks studying captured Ravager technology. She discovered that their bioships used a complex network of nerve-like connections to share information. Damage enough of these connections, and the ships became isolated from the group mind. Human marines began boarding damaged Ravager vessels, not to capture them but to plant specially designed viruses in their biological computers. These viruses spread through the Ravager network like a disease, corrupting their shared memories and making them see enemies where none existed. Colonel Kim led one of these boarding parties. His team moved through the organic corridors of a Ravager ship, their special equipment protecting them from the toxic atmosphere. They found the ship's central nerve cluster, a pulsing mass of biological circuits that looked like a giant brain. Virus planted, Kim reported as his team retreated. Beginning data corruption in 3, 2, 1. The Ravager ship suddenly changed direction, turning its weapons on another Ravager vessel nearby. Its infected biocomputer was telling it that the other ship was an enemy, even though they were on the same side. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Ravager ships began attacking each other as the human-designed viruses spread through their network. The perfect coordination that had made them so deadly started falling apart. General Teshra, commanding her fleet from an escape pod after her flagship was destroyed, watched in amazement as the Ravager formation dissolved into chaos. "What is happening to them?" she asked over the communication channel. "They are learning," came Minho's calm voice in response, "that there are some lessons they should not have tried to teach themselves." The tide of battle was turning, but not because of massive guns or overwhelming numbers. It was changing because a few quiet humans had watched, learned, and found a way to turn the enemy's greatest advantage into their greatest weakness. Warlord Gricksmith had lived for over 2,000 years. He had consumed the life force of 100 worlds and commanded fleets that made stars tremble. His massive bioship was grown from the bones of dead planets, and his mind connected to millions of other Ravager creatures across the galaxy. But now, for the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten: fear. "Report," he commanded in the bioacoustic language of his species. His voice traveled through the living walls of his ship, carried by nerve fibers that pulsed with electric signals. 40% of our forward scouts have gone silent," came the reply from his fleet coordinators. "Many others are reporting false enemy positions. Some have begun attacking our own forces." Gricksmith's compound eyes focused on the battle displays growing from the walls around him. The tactical situation made no sense. His forces had been winning completely just 2 hours ago. The alien fleets had been broken and scattered, their formations destroyed by superior Ravager tactics. Now his own ships were turning on each other. Entire squadrons were reporting enemy contacts where none existed. Worse, some vessels had stopped responding to the group mind entirely, as if they had been cut off from the collective consciousness that made the Ravagers so powerful. "How many ships have we lost to this infection?" Gricksmith asked. "Unknown," his coordinator admitted. "The affected vessels are providing corrupted data. We cannot tell which reports are real and which are false." This was impossible. The Ravagers had faced many enemies over the millennia. They had fought species with advanced technology, powerful weapons, and clever tactics. But they had always won because they learned faster than their enemies could adapt. Every battle taught them something new. Every victory added to their collective knowledge. No enemy had ever turned that advantage against them. "Who is responsible for this?" Gricksmith demanded. "Which species has this capability?" His coordinator hesitated before answering. "The disruption appears to be coming from the smallest enemy vessels, ships we classified as insignificant during our initial analysis." "Show me." The bio displays around Gricksmith shifted to show sensor readings from the battle zone. Among the wreckage of larger alien ships, tiny vessels darted in and out of hiding places. They were so small that his scouts had barely noticed them during the preliminary scouting phase, but now these tiny ships were everywhere. They struck from asteroid fields, from the sensor shadows of destroyed vessels, from clouds of debris where no one would think to look. Each attack was precise, targeting specific systems on Ravager bioships with surgical accuracy. Humans, Gricksmith said with disgust. The youngest species in the Council Alliance. How can such primitives cause this much damage? But even as he spoke, he was analyzing the tactical data his ships were sending him. The human attacks showed a level of preparation that should have been impossible. They knew exactly where to hit Ravager vessels to cause maximum disruption. They understood the bioship nervous systems better than some of his own fleet commanders. They have been studying us, he realized. While we were learning their weaknesses, they were learning ours. Commander Omaray's stealth ship Soul's Shadow had been drifting powerless for 6 hours, hidden among the wreckage of a destroyed council cruiser. Her crew of 12 specialists had been waiting in complete silence, breathing recycled air, and monitoring the battle through passive sensors only. Now it was time to move. All systems online, she whispered to her crew. Begin approach to target. Her target was a Ravager Command bioship, one of the vessels that coordinated attacks for an entire sector of their fleet. It was huge, covered in organic armor that pulsed with internal light, and surrounded by smaller escort vessels, but O had studied the Ravager movement patterns for weeks. She knew they had a blind spot in their sensor coverage, a small area where their bioship's natural electromagnetic fields interfered with each other. Soul's Shadow slipped through that blind spot like a ghost. The human ship was designed for stealth, its hull coated with materials that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. To the Ravagers, it was invisible. O's team worked with practiced precision. They attached neural disruptor devices to the Ravager ship's hull, tiny machines that Dr. Choi had designed to interfere with bioship nervous systems. The devices looked like small metal spiders, and they burrowed into the organic armor like parasites. Devices planted, O reported on the secure human channel. Beginning data corruption sequence. The effect was immediate. The Ravager Command ship began sending conflicting orders to its escort fleet. Some escorts were told to attack phantom enemies. Others received coordinates that led them into asteroid fields where they crashed into rocks, but O was not finished. Her ship carried something else, something that Dr. Choi had discovered during her analysis of captured Ravager technology. The bioships used a specific frequency to synchronize their group mind. Disrupt that frequency and individual ships became confused and disoriented. Activating neural jamming field. O announced. A wave of electromagnetic interference spread out from Soul's Shadow, invisible but devastating to Ravager biosystems. Ships throughout the area began losing coordination with their fleet. Some stopped moving entirely, their biocomputers overwhelmed by the conflicting signals. Sergeant Lim Sungmin led his marine boarding team through the twisted corridors of a damaged Ravager vessel. The air was thick with toxic gases, and the walls pulsed with a sick, rhythmic beating like a dying heart. "Target is ahead," he told his team through their suit communicators. "Remember, we are not here to fight. We plant the virus and get out." The boarding operation was unlike anything in standard military doctrine. Instead of trying to capture or destroy the enemy ship, the human Marines were performing what Dr. Choi called cognitive surgery. They were going to infect the ship's biocomputer with a specially designed virus that would spread through the Ravager network. The team reached the ship's central nervous cluster, a massive organic computer that looked like a giant brain suspended in glowing fluid. Nerve fibers as thick as a person's arm connected it to every system on the ship. "Virus deployment in progress," Lim reported as his technical specialist connected their equipment to the biocomputer. Estimated penetration time, 30 seconds. The virus was a masterpiece of biological programming, designed by Dr. Choi to mimic normal Ravager thought patterns while carrying false information. Once it infected this ship's biocomputer, it would spread to every other Ravager vessel the ship communicated with. "Deployment complete," the specialist announced. "The infection is active and spreading." Lim's team retreated quickly as the virus began its work. Around them, the ship's systems started malfunctioning. Lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and the rhythmic beating of the walls became irregular and panicked. similar. Boarding operations were happening throughout the battle zone. Human marine teams struck at damaged Ravager vessels, implanting viruses that spread like diseases through the enemy fleet's collective consciousness. The Ravagers had thought their shared intelligence made them invincible. They had never imagined that an enemy might turn that connection into a weapon against them. Warlord Gricksmith watched his fleet tear itself apart and finally understood what was happening. The humans had not tried to match Ravager strength with strength. Instead, they had found a way to make that strength destroy itself. All ships, cut connections to the group mind, he ordered desperately. Operate independently until the infection can be purged, but it was too late. The virus had spread too far, infected too many vessels. Cutting the connections now would leave his fleet blind and uncoordinated. Easy prey for even the damaged Council forces. For the first time in 2 millennia, Warlord Gricksmith gave an order he had never expected to give. All remaining ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We must regroup and analyze this new threat. The great Ravager fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, began to withdraw from the battle zone. They left behind hundreds of their own vessels, either destroyed by friendly fire or infected by human viruses to function properly. In the wreckage-filled space around the Kepler defense line, small human ships emerged from their hiding places to help rescue survivors from the alien fleets they had just saved. The emergency meeting on Nexus Prime was very different from the one 3 weeks earlier. The same circular table, the same holographic displays, but everything else had changed. Admiral Kekstar was not there. His flagship had been destroyed in the battle, and he was recovering in a medical facility, his scales burned and his pride broken. General Tysra sat in her chair quietly, her compound eyes dim with exhaustion. Half the alien commanders who had been so confident before were either dead or too injured to attend. The ones who survived looked at Commander Minho with very different expressions than they had shown before. "How?" asked Commander Veltar, a blue-skinned humanoid who now spoke for the Vorthak fleet. "How did you know what would happen?" Minho sat in the same chair as before, still wearing his simple gray uniform, but now the chair was at the center of the table, not pushed to one side like it had been during the previous meeting. "We watched," Minho said simply. "We listened, we learned." He gestured to Dr. Choi, who stood beside a new holographic display. This one showed the pattern of Ravager attacks over the past year, but now the pattern was clear to everyone. "The Ravagers are not mindless destroyers," Dr. Choi explained. "They are intelligent hunters who study their prey before striking. Every species they have defeated used the same basic tactics: massive fleets, overwhelming firepower, direct confrontation. Those tactics worked for us for thousands of years," General Tysra said, her voice weak. "How could they suddenly become useless?" "Because the Ravagers learned from every battle," Minho answered. "They have the combined experience of fighting hundreds of different species. They know how you think, how you plan, how you fight. Your tactics were not suddenly useless, they became predictable." Captain Park Soman stepped forward with another display. This one showing the bioship technology that human teams had captured during the battle. "The Ravagers use a collective intelligence," she explained. "Every ship is connected to every other ship through biological networks. When one learns something, they all learn it instantly. This made them incredibly powerful, but it also gave them a critical weakness." "If you could corrupt the network," Commander Veltar said, understanding beginning to show in his eyes, "you could turn their greatest strength against them." "Exactly," Dr. Choi confirmed. Human teams planted cognitive viruses in their biocomputers. These viruses spread through their network like a disease, making them see enemies where none existed, giving them false information about our positions. Colonel Kim joined the briefing, showing images from the boarding operations his Marines had conducted. "We did not try to fight them ship to ship. Instead, we infected their ability to think clearly. Their own shared intelligence became a weapon pointed at themselves." The alien commanders studied the data in silence. Some looked impressed. Others looked disturbed. All of them looked humbled. Why did you not tell us about this plan? Asked Ambassador Thix, a tall insect-like creature with delicate wings. We could have coordinated our efforts, worked together. Minho exchanged a glance with Soman before answering. Would you have listened? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens remembered how they had dismissed human concerns during the previous meeting, how they had mocked human caution and called them cowards. Besides, Minho continued, the plan only worked because the Ravagers did not see us as a threat. If we had revealed our capabilities too early, they would have adapted. They would have found ways to counter our viruses, to protect their network from infection. Being underestimated was part of the strategy, Soman added. You assigned us to escort duty in the rear areas. The Ravagers ignored our small ships. This gave us the perfect position to strike when they were focused on your battle fleets. Dr. Choi brought up a new display showing the current status of the Ravager threat. The viruses we planted are still spreading through their network. Ravager fleets across the galaxy are experiencing coordination problems. Some are attacking each other. Others are fleeing to unknown regions of space. How long will the effects last? General Taishra asked. Unknown, Dr. Choi admitted. The Ravagers are intelligent. Eventually, they will find ways to purge the viruses from their systems. But it will take time, maybe years. And during that time, they will be much less dangerous. The meeting continued for several hours. The alien commanders asked detailed questions about human tactics, about the cognitive viruses, about how to defend against similar attacks in the future. Minho answered everything patiently, sharing information that could save countless lives across the galaxy. But there was something else the aliens wanted to know. What do humans want in return for this? Commander Veltar asked. What is your price for saving the Council? Minho seemed genuinely surprised by the question. Price? We are all members of the same council. When one species is threatened, we are all threatened. That is what alliance means. But surely you want something, Ambassador Thix pressed. Better trading rights? Advanced technology? Military support for human colonies? We want what we have always wanted, Minho said. To be treated as equals. To have our ideas considered seriously. To be judged by our contributions, not by how long we have been traveling among the stars. General Taishra made a clicking sound with her mandibles. In her species, it was a sign of deep respect. Your contributions have been ... substantial. The Council Defense Doctrine will need to be completely rewritten, Commander Veltar said. We cannot rely on the old ways anymore. The Ravagers have learned too much about our traditional tactics. I suggest we form a new strategic planning committee, Minho said. Representatives from all species working together to develop new methods of defense. Methods that emphasize adaptation and flexibility over raw power. And who would lead this committee? General Taishra asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. The alien commanders looked at each other. Then at Minho, the human who had been dismissed as too cautious, too weak, too new to understand real warfare. The committee should be led by the species that best understands adaptive tactics, Commander Veltar said formally. I nominate the human delegation. Seconded, said General Taishra. Agreed, added Ambassador Thix. One by one, every surviving alien commander endorsed the proposal. Minho accepted the responsibility with the same quiet dignity he had shown throughout the crisis. As the meeting ended, Captain Soman noticed something familiar. Minho was taking notes again, just like he had during the first meeting. But now, instead of being ignored, the alien commanders were watching his every move, trying to understand what the quiet human might be planning next. What are you thinking about? Soman asked as they walked back to their ship. Minho smiled, the same calm smile he had worn when everyone else thought they were doomed. The Ravagers are not the only threat out there, he said. The galaxy is full of dangers we have not encountered yet. Enemies we have not imagined. Challenges that will require new solutions. And you think humans can find those solutions? I think humans do what we have always done, Minho replied. We watch, we learn, we adapt. And when the time comes, we act. Through the viewports of Nexus Prime, they could see the mixed fleets of the Council Alliance. Human ships now flew alongside alien vessels as equals, their small size no longer seen as a weakness but as an advantage. Quick, agile, and unpredictable, the quiet observers had become the protectors of the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other threats were watching, learning, preparing. But now they faced an alliance that included a species, which specialized in turning strength into weakness, confidence into vulnerability. The humans were no longer dismissed. They were ready. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler, the galaxy was a different place. The massive Ravager fleets that had terrorized civilizations for millennia were scattered and broken. Some had fled to the dark spaces between stars. Others had turned on each other, their infected biocomputers making them see enemies everywhere they looked, but Commander Minho knew that victory could be temporary. In his new office aboard Nexus Prime, he studied reports from across the galaxy with the same careful attention he had always given to details others missed. "The Ravagers are adapting," Dr. Choi reported during their weekly briefing. She looked tired but excited, the way scientists looked when they discovered something important. Long-range sensors are detecting new bioship designs. Smaller vessels, operating independently instead of in connected fleets. They are learning to function without their group mind, Captain Soman observed. Cutting themselves off from the network to avoid our viruses. Minho nodded slowly. This was exactly what he had expected. The Ravagers were intelligent, and intelligence always found ways to survive. How long before they pose a threat again? Asked Colonel Kim, who now commanded the new multi-species Special Operations Division. Unknown, Dr. Choi admitted, but probably not more than 2 or 3 years. They will find ways to counter our cognitive viruses eventually. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from General Teshra. The insect commander appeared on the holographic display, her compound eyes bright with alarm. "Commander. Minho, we have a situation developing in the Outer Rim territories," she said without her usual formal greetings. "Something new, something we have never seen before." "Show me," Minho replied. The display changed to show star charts from the galaxy's edge, where few civilized species maintained permanent colonies. Several star systems were marked with warning symbols. 3 systems have gone completely silent. "In the past month," General Teshra explained. "No communications, no energy signatures, no signs of life. But unlike Ravager attacks, nothing appears to have been destroyed." "Evacuated?" Soman suggested. "That was our first thought," the general continued. "But long-range scans show all the planets are still intact. Cities still standing, ships still in orbit. Everything looks normal except that nobody is answering our calls." Dr. Choi leaned forward, interested. "What about life sign readings?" "That is the disturbing part," General Teshra said. "The readings are ... strange, not exactly negative, but not normal either. As if the life signs are there but somehow different." Minho studied the star charts, noting the pattern of affected systems. They formed a rough line pointing toward the galactic core, where most of the Council's important worlds were located. "I will take a small investigation fleet to the nearest affected system," he decided. "Dr. Choi, prepare your analysis equipment. Colonel Kim, ready a team for potential ground operations." "Sir," General Teshra said hesitantly, "perhaps this requires a larger response, a full battle fleet, just in case." Minho smiled slightly. "General, have we not learned that sometimes the quiet approach works better than the loud one?" The investigation fleet consisted of just 3 ships, the Soul's Promise, a stealth reconnaissance vessel, and a small marine transport. To most observers it looked inadequate for facing an unknown threat. But Minho had learned that being underestimated was often an advantage. The journey to the Outer Rim took 4 days through hyperspace. During the trip, Dr. Choi and her team analyzed every piece of available data about the silent systems. What they found was puzzling. "The affected worlds show no signs of struggle," she reported to Minho. "No weapon signatures, no debris fields. No evidence of invasion or battle. Whatever happened, it was not violent. Could it be a disease? Soman asked. Something that affects entire populations? Possible, Dr. Choi said, but our bioscanners would detect that. These readings are different. The life signs are present, but altered somehow. When they reached the edge of the first silent system, Rigel 7, Minho ordered the fleet to stop and observe before proceeding. This was the same careful approach that had served them well against the Ravagers. Passive scans only, he instructed. No active sensors, no communications attempts. We watch first. For 6 hours, they studied the system from a distance. The planets looked normal through telescopic observation. Cities glowed with lights. Ships moved in standard orbital patterns. Everything appeared to be functioning normally, but there was something wrong with the patterns. Lieutenant Nam Hyok, now promoted to senior pilot, was the first to notice it. Sir, the ship movements are too regular. Look at the orbital traffic. Around the main planet. He put the observation data on the main screen. Ships were moving between the planet and its space stations in perfectly timed intervals, like clockwork. No variation at all, Soman observed. Real space traffic has random elements. Ships leave when they are ready, arrive when they can. This looks like ... double quo, like a program, Dr. Choi finished. Or like people following very precise instructions. Minho made his decision. Take us closer, full stealth mode. I want to know what is controlling those people. The Soul's Promise slipped into the system using the same stealth techniques that had worked against the Ravagers. They approached the main planet carefully, scanning for any signs of hostile activity. What they found was more disturbing than an invasion. Commander, Dr. Choi called from her station, her voice tight with concern. You need to see this. The bioscanner readings she showed him made no sense at first. The planet's population was alive and healthy, but their brain activity was wrong. Instead of the chaotic, individualistic patterns of normal consciousness, everyone showed the same synchronized neural waves. They are all thinking the same thoughts, Dr. Choi said quietly, at exactly the same time. Mind control? Colonel Kim asked. More than that, Dr. Choi replied. It is like their individual consciousness has been replaced with something else, something that makes them all parts of a single mind. Captain O's stealth ship, Soul's Shadow, approached one of the orbital stations for a closer look. Her crew used advanced sensors to peer through the station's walls and observe the people inside. They are working, O reported. Operating. Machinery, maintaining systems, going about their normal activities, but they move in perfect synchronization. When one person stops for a break, they all stop. When one starts working again, they all start. Any signs of coercion? Minho asked. Guards, weapons, external control devices? None that we can see, O replied. They appear to be acting voluntarily, but they are definitely not acting individually. Dr. Choi continued her analysis, comparing the neural patterns to every known form of mind control or mental influence in the galactic database. What she found made her feel cold. Commander, these readings match something in our xenobiological files, she said. There are records of a species called the Unity. They were encountered by deep space explorers about 50 years ago, but contact was lost shortly afterward. What do we know about them? Minho asked. Dr. Choi brought up the old files. They are described as a collective consciousness species. Instead of individual minds, they share a single group awareness. According to these reports, they believe that individual consciousness is a form of suffering, and that true peace can only come through mental unity. They are converting other species to their way of thinking, Soman realized with horror. It appears so, Dr. Choi confirmed. The neural patterns from this planet match the Unity's own consciousness structure. They have somehow imposed their collective mind on the entire population. Colonel Kim checked his weapons systems. How do we fight something like this? You cannot shoot at an idea. Minho studied the data for a long time, thinking about the implications. The Unity were not destroyers like the Ravagers. They probably believed they were helping the species they converted, freeing them from the chaos and conflict of individual thought. But the result was the same, the end of those species as independent beings. "We do what we always do," Minho said. "Finally. We learn everything we can about our enemy. Dr. Choi, I need you to find out how the Unity's conversion process works. Colonel Kim, prepare your teams for reconnaissance missions. Captain O, map their patrol patterns and communication networks." "What about the Council?" Soman asked. "Should we call for reinforcements?" Minho looked at the star chart showing the three silent systems, all pointing toward the galaxy's core like an arrow aimed at the heart of civilization. "Not yet," he said. "First, we need to understand exactly what we are dealing with. The Unity have been quiet for 50 years. Now, they are active again, and they are moving toward our most important worlds. There must be a reason for that timing." "Sir," Dr. Choi said hesitantly, "what if they know about us? What if they studied our victory over the Ravagers and decided that human tactical abilities pose a threat to their expansion?" The thought sent a chill through the ship's bridge. If the Unity saw humans as a particular danger to their goals, then Earth itself might be a target. "All the more reason to understand them completely," Minho said. "We stop the Ravagers by turning their strength against them. Maybe we can do the same thing with the Unity." But as he studied the peaceful, synchronized world below them, Minho wondered if an enemy that claimed to bring peace might be harder to defeat than one that brought. Dr. Choi's analysis of the Unity took 3 weeks of careful observation. During that time, the human investigation fleet remained hidden in the outer reaches of the Rigel 7 system, watching the converted population go about their synchronized lives. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. "The Unity do not use technology for their conversions," Dr. Choi reported during one of their daily briefings. "They use a form of psychic influence that spreads from mind to mind like a virus. Once enough people in a population are converted, the effect becomes self-sustaining." "How many is enough?" Colonel Kim asked. "Approximately 30%, Dr. Choi replied. "After that point, the collective consciousness becomes strong enough to pull in the remaining individuals whether they want to join or not." Captain Soman studied the bioscanner readings from the planet below. "Is the process reversible?" "Unknown," Dr. Choi admitted. "The records from 50 years ago do not mention anyone ever being freed from Unity control. But then again, no one ever tried to fight them before. Most species they encountered welcomed the conversion." "Welcomed it?" Commander Minho asked, surprised. Dr. Choi brought up psychological profiles of the converted populations. "Think about it from their perspective. No more loneliness, no more conflict, no more uncertainty about what others are thinking. Everyone shares the same goals, the same knowledge, the same emotions. For many people, that sounds like paradise." "But they lose themselves," Soman protested. "Their individual personalities, their unique thoughts, everything that makes them who they are?" "The Unity would say that individual identity is an illusion," Dr. Choi explained. "They believe that separate consciousness creates suffering through competition, misunderstanding, and isolation. In their view, joining the collective is not losing yourself but finding your true self as part of something greater." Minho looked at the peaceful world spinning below them. No wars, no crime, no arguments or disagreements. Everyone working together in perfect harmony. He could understand why some people might find that appealing, but he also understood what it really meant. "They are erasing diversity," he said quietly. "Every species they convert becomes the same. All the different ways of thinking, all the unique perspectives that make each race valuable, gone forever. That is why they see us as a threat," Lieutenant Nam Hyok observed. "Humans specialize in adapting, in finding new solutions to old problems. Individual creativity is our greatest strength, which makes us their greatest enemy." Colonel Kim added grimly. A priority communication came through from Nexus Prime. General Teshra appeared on the holographic display, her compound eyes dim with worry. "Commander Minho, we have an urgent Situation: the Unity have made contact with the Council. What kind of contact? Minho asked. Diplomatic, General Taishra replied. They sent ambassadors to 3 different Council worlds simultaneously. The ambassadors are requesting formal audiences with our governments. Dr. Choi felt her stomach drop. That is how they start the conversion process. They do not invade or attack. They simply talk to people, sharing their philosophy and demonstrating the peace that comes with unity. And some people choose to join them voluntarily, Soman realized, which makes them much harder to fight than the Ravagers, Minho said. You cannot declare war on an idea, especially one that many people find attractive, General Taishra continued. Her report: the Council leadership is divided. Some want to meet with the Unity ambassadors to hear what they have to say. Others want to refuse all contact and prepare for military action. What do the ambassadors look like? Dr. Choi asked. Are they the original Unity species or converted members of other races? Both, General Taishra replied. Each diplomatic team includes representatives from multiple species, all speaking with perfect coordination. It is ... unsettling to watch, Minho made his decision. General, delay the diplomatic meetings as long as possible. Make up excuses, create procedural delays, anything to buy us time. I need to understand more about the Unity's capabilities before anyone makes contact with them. How much time do you need? As much as you can give me, Minho replied. And prepare the Council fleet for potential action. But keep the preparations secret. If the Unity realize we are treating them as a military threat, they might abandon diplomacy and move to direct conversion. After the communication ended, Minho gathered his senior staff for a strategy meeting. The situation was unlike anything they had faced before. The Ravagers were simple, he said. They were violent invaders trying to destroy us. We could fight them with weapons and tactics. But the Unity are not invaders. They are missionaries, convinced they are offering salvation. Some of our own people might want to join them, Soman pointed out, especially on worlds that have experienced war or social problems recently. That is what makes them so dangerous, Dr. Choi agreed. They do not need to conquer us by force. They just need to convince enough people that individual consciousness is wrong, and the rest of us will be absorbed automatically. Colonel Kim looked frustrated. So how do we fight an enemy that wins by convincing people not to fight? Minho studied the data they had gathered about Unity operations. There had to be a weakness somewhere, some flaw in their perfect system that could be exploited. Dr. Choi, you said the conversion process requires 30% of a population to become self-sustaining. What happens if that percentage drops below the threshold? Theoretically, the collective consciousness would weaken and might collapse entirely, she replied. But I have never seen any evidence of that happening. Because no one ever tried to make it happen, Minho said with growing excitement. Everyone who encountered the Unity either joined them voluntarily or fled. No one ever fought back. How would we reduce their numbers? Colonel Kim asked. The same way we fought the Ravagers, Minho replied. By turning their greatest strength into a weakness. The Unity's power comes from their collective consciousness. But what if we could disrupt that connection? Make them unable to share thoughts and feelings with each other? Dr. Choi began to understand. If we could isolate Unity members from the collective, they might remember what individual consciousness feels like. Some of them might choose to remain individuals instead of rejoining the group. It is worth trying, Soman agreed. But how do we test it without risking exposure to their conversion influence? Minho looked at the planet below them, where millions of converted beings lived in perfect harmony, no longer troubled by the chaos and conflict of individual thought. We go down there, he said simply. Small teams, protected by Dr. Choi's new neural shielding technology. We make contact with the converted population and see if we can break some of them free from the collective. Sir, Colonel Kim protested, that is incredibly dangerous. If the neural shielding fails, we could be converted ourselves. Yes, Minho agreed. But if we do nothing, the Unity will continue spreading through the galaxy. Eventually, they will. Reach Earth. They will reach every world where independent thought still exists. This might be our only chance to find a way to stop them. Dr. Choi was already working on modifications to their neural shielding equipment. I can strengthen the protection, but I cannot guarantee it will work against direct Unity influence. I understand the risks, Minho said. But we have faced impossible odds before. The Ravagers seemed invincible too until we found their weakness. He looked around at his team, the same people who had helped defeat the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. They looked worried but determined. The Unity believe that individual consciousness is a disease that needs to be cured, Minho continued. They want to heal the galaxy by making everyone think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, want the same things. But diversity is not a disease. It is our greatest strength. So we show them what they are trying to destroy, Soman said, understanding his plan. We show them the value of being different, Minho confirmed. We remind them what they gave up when they joined the collective. And maybe, just maybe, some of them will choose to be individuals again. It was a desperate plan, built on hope and theory rather than proven tactics. But as Minho looked at the peaceful, empty world below them, he knew they had to try. The galaxy's greatest enemy was not one that brought destruction, but one that brought peace at the cost of everything that made life worth living. The landing team consisted of just 6 people: Commander Minho, Dr. Choi, Colonel Kim, Captain Soman, Lieutenant Nam, and Sergeant Lim. Each wore specially modified neural shielding equipment that Dr. Choi had designed to block Unity psychic influence, but the equipment was untested against direct contact and everyone knew the risks. Remember, Dr. Choi said as their shuttle approached the planet's surface, do not remove your helmets for any reason. The neural shielding is built into the helmet systems. Without them, you will be vulnerable to conversion. The shuttle landed in a park near the planet's main city. Around them, converted beings went about their daily activities with the same eerie synchronization they had observed from orbit. People walked at exactly the same pace, turned their heads at the same angles, even breathed in perfect rhythm with each other. It is like watching a choreographed dance, Soman whispered over the communication channel. Or a nightmare, Sergeant Lim replied as they approached the city center. Converted beings began to notice them. But instead of showing alarm or curiosity, they simply stopped what they were doing and turned to face the humans with calm, identical expressions. Then they began to speak in perfect unison. Welcome, travelers from distant stars, they said, their voices creating a strange harmony. We greet you with the peace of unity. Why do you hide your minds behind barriers of fear? Dr. Choi's equipment showed massive psychic pressure building around them. The Unity Collective was trying to probe their thoughts, to understand why these strangers resisted the gift of shared consciousness. We come seeking understanding, Minho replied carefully. We wish to learn about your way of life. Understanding comes through joining, the crowd responded. Remove your barriers and know true peace. Feel what we feel. Think what we think. Be free from the pain of isolation. What if we prefer our isolation? Colonel Kim asked the converted. Beings looked confused, as if the question made no sense to them. After a moment, they spoke again. Isolation is suffering. Competition is conflict. Individual thought creates fear, anger, loneliness, despair. We offer escape from these burdens. Why do you choose to carry them? Dr. Choi was monitoring her scanners carefully. Commander, I am detecting individual neural patterns underneath the collective signal. Some of these people still have traces of their original personalities buried in their minds. This gave Minho an idea. Instead of arguing with the collective consciousness, he addressed one person directly. You, he said, pointing to a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. What was your name before you joined the Unity? The woman's expression flickered for just a moment, and she answered in her own voice instead of the collective harmony. I was Dr. Sarah Chun, a xenobiologist studying plant life on distant worlds. Immediately, the other converted beings turned toward her with concerned expressions. The collective consciousness was trying to reassert control over her individual thoughts. Dr. Chun, Minho said quickly, what did you love most about your research? I loved ... She paused, struggling. Against the collective influence. I loved discovering new species. Each planet had unique life forms, adapted to their specific environments. The diversity was beautiful, so many different ways that life could exist and flourish. That diversity still exists, Dr. Choi said. Gently, but the unity wants to eliminate it. They want to make all consciousness the same, just as they have made all of you the same. Dr. Chin's eyes widened with horror as she realized what she had lost. My research, my discoveries, all the unique perspectives I gained from studying different worlds, they are all gone, absorbed into the collective. The other converted beings moved closer, their shared consciousness trying to pull Dr. Chun back into unity. But something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, she began to resist. No, she said, her voice growing stronger. I remember who I was. I remember the joy of individual discovery, the excitement of finding something no one else had ever seen. That was mine, and I want it back. Dr. Choi's scanner showed Dr. Chun's neural patterns changing, individual thought pathways reactivating as she broke free from the collective influence, but the unity was not giving up easily. The converted beings around them spoke in unison, their voices filled with sadness and concern. Sister Chun, you choose suffering over peace. Why do you embrace pain when harmony is offered freely? Because pain is part of life, Dr. Chun replied. Joy has no meaning without sorrow. Discovery has no value without the possibility of failure. Individual consciousness includes suffering, but it also includes everything that makes existence worthwhile. More converted beings were beginning to show signs of individual awareness. The human's presence and Dr. Chun's words were creating cracks in the collective consciousness, allowing buried personalities to resurface. I was a musician, said a young man, his voice shaking. I wrote songs that no one else could write, expressed feelings that came from my unique experiences. The unity took that away from me. I was a teacher, added an elderly woman. I helped. Children learned to think for themselves, to ask questions and find their own answers. How could I have forgotten the importance of individual thought? The collective consciousness was weakening as more people remembered who they had been before conversion. But the unity were not defenseless. From the edges of the city, more converted beings were approaching, thousands of them, their combined psychic influence growing stronger. We must leave, Dr. Choi warned. The collective is bringing reinforcements. If they surround us, our neural shielding might not be enough to resist conversion. But Minho was watching something else. The people who had broken free from the unity were not just standing around talking. They were actively helping others remember their individual identities, sharing memories of what life had been like before the conversion. Dr. Chun, he called. Out, can you help others break free the way you did? I think so, she replied. Individual consciousness is like a spark. Once it starts, it can spread to others if they are willing to remember what they lost. Then spread it, Minho said. Remind as many people as you can about who they used to be. Show them that individual thought is not a disease but a gift. The humans began to retreat toward their shuttle, but they were not running away. They were giving the freed individuals time to work, to kindle the spark of independent thought in others. The process was not easy. Many converted beings resisted, comfortable in their peaceful unity and afraid of the chaos that came with individual consciousness. But others began to remember, to question, to choose freedom over peace. A critical moment came when the approaching unity reinforcements reached the city center. Thousands of converted beings surrounded the growing group of individuals, their collective consciousness pressing down like a weight, trying to force everyone back into unity. But something unexpected happened. The individuals, instead of being overwhelmed, began to support each other. They formed their own kind of collective, not based on shared thoughts, but on shared determination to remain free. We choose diversity, Dr. Chun declared, speaking for all the freed individuals. We choose the right to disagree, to make mistakes, to find our own paths through life. Unity may be peaceful, but it is not life. The Unity Collective wavered, confused by resistance they had never encountered before. For thousands of years, they had converted species by offering peace and harmony. No one had ever argued that chaos and conflict might be preferable. Colonel Kim noticed something on his scanners. Commander, the collective consciousness is showing stress fractures. The psychic network is becoming unstable. Because they cannot understand individual choice, Dr. Choi realized. The Unity have been a collective for so long that they have forgotten what it means to be alone, to think independent thoughts. Our resistance is forcing them to experience individual consciousness again, and they do not know how to handle it. The effect spread beyond the city. Across the planet, converted beings began to question the collective consciousness, to remember their individual identities. Some chose to remain with the Unity, finding comfort in shared thoughts and emotions. But others chose freedom, accepting the pain and uncertainty of individual existence in exchange for the joy and discovery it could bring. By the time the humans returned to their ship, the planet below was no longer unified. Instead, it was divided. Between those who chose collective peace and those who chose individual freedom, for the first time in 50 years, the Unity had been forced to coexist with independent consciousness. What happens now? Soman asked as they watched the planet from orbit. Now we have proven that the Unity can be resisted, Minho replied. More importantly, we have shown that conversion is not permanent. People can choose to break free if they